Sometimes marketers need to understand that it's not only about satisfying consumer needs and wants, because there's also social effects on society as a whole. Hence, marketing organizations are encouraged to take what we call a broader societal view that strikes a balance between what consumer wants, the goals of the firm, but also the welfare of the society. So, marketing is often criticized for being exploited. They say that sometimes they take advantage of unfair advantage of people or of situations. For example, they might charge higher prices for beverages if you are on the beach and this is the only beverage supplier in the area, as compared to charging the same beverage in a supermarket. They're also sometimes being pervasive, and some customers are a bit tired of being pushed around. And some marketers are actually saying that they're inefficient and they're using resources that are unnecessary. And some are actually criticized for stimulating what we call unwholesome demand and promote products and services that actually might be harmful. A recent trend in alcohol consumption of beverages is that a lot of companies now, when they advertise, they say to be sensible and intelligent when you drink, to make sure that you're not driving. So they too try to encourage you, obviously, to consume their product and to drink, but they also encourage you to be responsible about your behavior afterwards and to make sure that you're not driving and not risking other people's health. So what are types of criticisms of marketing? So often it criticized that they represent what some consider to be inappropriate values. For example, when you promote a luxury product, you might actually promote the sense of vanity or the fact that having money or being successful are the only ways to happiness, putting false beliefs in consumers' mind that the only way to happiness is to be very wealthy or to possess these kinds of products. Also, occasionally, marketing is being criticized as engaging in illegal behavior. Perhaps, for example, in the smoking industry, it turns out that they knew for many, many years that smoking is not good for our health. Yet, they never published this type of research, and they prevented consumers from actually understanding the damage that smoking can create. And occasionally, they're also criticized of delivering poor customer service, meaning that they promise you one thing, you buy the service, and then you're sort of stuck with that service. One needs to remember that marketing is the most visible function in a company. And often, this is actually the only face that a consumer sees. So it's very important for a company to understand how they communicate with their consumers. Consumers then have their own responses to these situations. Consumers respond to this concern through an organized consumer movement. They are also prepared to project themselves and to register complaints. And many times, consumers can actually boycott or influence demand for a product because they are willing to stop dealing with firms that do not deliver what they want. For example, a few years ago, Nike was suspected, and also Apple was suspected, of using sweatshops and using young kids in developing countries to make the sneakers or make the iPhone. Those consumers made a lot of noise about these accusations and wanted to verify that when they buy the product, it was not made by children and it was not made by people who were taking advantage of. So the consumers turn their attention to broader social and environmental issues. These days, it's very rare to find a company that does not have some sort of a social cause or an environmental cause connected to their purchases. Many of them go all the way, like Tom's Shoes, where if you buy a pair of shoes, you will get one for free. But some of them will just say that they will donate a specific amount of money to charity if you will buy their products. The government also is not quiet on those issues, and they do respond and sometimes regulate some of these criticism. For example, all of the cigarettes today on the boxes says that smoking is dangerous for your health. That's a government regulation. The fact that kids that are younger than 16 cannot purchase cigarettes is also a government regulation. So the government makes sure that whatever the marketing department is promising, it is regulated, and they do try to protect consumers. Hence, the government at all levels have passed laws to protect consumers and to regulate marketing. And the idea of these laws is to protect consumers against physical harm as well as against just being misled. Much of the legislation is really intended to ensure that the customer has enough information to make a reasoned purchase decision. An example could be the law that forces chain restaurants to actually put calories content and sugar content and fat content on their products. This really educates a lot of consumers who didn't realize how much fat or how much sugar or how many calories are in these products, and hence they made what we call uneducated decisions. Some public agencies regulate and control markets in the interest of the consumer. Now, businesses also respond to this kind of accusation. So businesses have responded to criticism with efforts to provide the consumer with better information and to make it accessible. So today, when we have websites, many companies are trying to be as transparent and as authentic as they can. Because with social media and with the internet, it is clear that all consumers will eventually get the information they need. And if a company is trying to hide something, it is pretty obvious that eventually it will come out. So they do try to speak the truth and be frank with their consumers. So genuine efforts have been made to improve the quality of products and of customer service. Businesses also have established what we call self-regulatory mechanism to regulate advertising content. There are a few things that are not allowed to be said, especially in the United States. One of them is you can never say negative things about your competitor. So even when we use comparative advertising, and even when we use a brand name of a competitor, we can never say negative things about them. We can say that we have better things than them, but we can't say that they are worse than us. Also, whatever we say in advertising in the United States must be true. We are not allowed to lie in advertising in the United States. Maybe for us it's a given, but it's actually very important to know that whatever you are promised is actually true. However, marketers do have different ways of promising things, and sometimes consumers don't understand the subtle differences. For example, many cosmetic companies will promote their face cream, and talk about reducing the appearance of wrinkles. Many consumers do not distinguish between reducing the appearance of wrinkles and reducing wrinkles. Reducing wrinkles, as far as I know, have not been invented yet, and the company that will invent it probably will make a lot of money. But there are many cosmetic companies that promise you the reduce of the appearance of wrinkles. So sometimes we want to make sure we actually listen very carefully to what is promised to us. Another example is when marketers use pictures instead of words. So we can sort of see how the actor in the ad behaves after wearing something or drinking something or driving something. That basically tells us in a nonverbal way that the product will make us feel in a certain way or will perform in a certain way, but actually no words were mentioned. And that is legal. We assume that through the perception process, consumer will interpret that Coke brings us happiness. Obviously, nobody really believes that if you drink Coke, you will become happy. It's not an antidepressant drug. However, there are a lot of tricks that marketers do in order to go around the regulation that are implied in advertising. Many firms measure their quality of service and have set up customer service departments. Again, this is mainly because of the internet, and many reviews go online. And today, consumers rarely purchase a product without reading the reviews first. At the time, Dell computers had very bad customer service. It actually got the term of Dell hell. And Dell didn't pick up on the fact, it was the early days of the internet, they did not pick up on the fact that their customer service and feedback is really bad and they're being trashed online. By the time they realized that, they actually lost a lot of consumers. That kind of thing does not happen today because all the firms understand that they need to control and make sure that whatever is said online is immediately being fixed and being addressed. So finally, the last topic is ethics in marketing. So businesses are occasionally faced with situations that may be considered unethical. And again, it's not necessarily that they are breaking the law, but they're decisions that they know maybe should not be the right decision. So for example, when we have automobile manufacturers that knew that their car might catch fire when the brake and a certain speed limit is achieved. They knew it and yet they produced the product. The newest Samsung phone, which the battery catch on fire, that again is something that maybe they knew, maybe they didn't, maybe they used a manufacturer that wasn't reliable, but that is still an unethical behavior on the part of the company. So many firms have established now codes of ethical behavior in order to make sure that these things will not happen. So they created their own guidelines and their own regulation within the organization to make sure that the decisions that are happening within the organization are ethical and consistent with the mission of the company. So firms have an obligation to behave and advertise in a socially responded manner. Now, it's not just, as we mentioned, because of the fact that legally they are required to do so. It is also in their interest, and they understand it, because of the fact that consumers today do appreciate and respect the social environment they live in and the well-being of other people and other human beings as well in the world. So many companies have taken steps to protect customer privacy, for example, particularly in telemarketing and other forms of direct marketing. A big thing in ethical behavior is privacy. As I keep mentioning throughout the course, Google supplies a lot of information about us to companies. But again, this is not about an individual. The company cannot pinpoint who is the person that has this type of information. They just know there is a person that behaves in a specific way. Yes, they will market to that person, but they don't really know them by name. And at least for now, Google is definitely doing a lot, taking a lot of steps and doing a lot of regulation to make sure that the privacy of its own consumers is being protected.